Welcome back to Against the Cage, your new MMA home for all the best fight previews, recaps, and exclusive interviews that I know you're looking for. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with my colleagues Scott Fontana and Erich Richter, who, huge shout out to you guys, by the way, for your coverage of UFC 322 last week. You might have seen Erich live blogging away and Scott Fontana with all the exclusive interviews you could possibly imagine. And by the way, he just did one with Fatima Klein after her huge UFC 322 win that went up last night. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. But let's talk about UFC 322 at Madison Square Garden. There was a ton of welterweight fights, so let's talk about some of those. Most notably, of course, in the main event, we had Islam Makhachev, who took the belt off of Jack Della Maddalena, and it seems like Islam's era at lightweight is said and done, and now his welterweight era, championship era, has begun. And I want to ask you, Scott, what does this era of Islam Makhachev at 170 look like?
I'm saying hopefully pretty active. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. On average, Islam competed every 6-7 months or so when he was the lightweight champion. It felt like longer, and it did get longer as his reign went on. But I did the math. That's what it said. Maybe my math was wrong, but there is optimism though. There's reason to be optimistic that he becomes a little more reliable on a 2 times per year fighter kind of range here. He doesn't have to do those big weight cuts. That should make it easier for him too, as well, to fight after Ramadan when he fasts. So I'm looking forward to some really exciting and hopefully a little more active welterweight championship defenses from an incredible fighter who we're watching, and this is somebody who's really special.
Erich, how about you? What do you think?
Definitely hoping for an active. Honestly, it could be a pretty long reign. I mean, welterweight's pretty loaded. We're going to talk about that, but Islam Makhachev, especially being in there for the post-fight press conference, for me, what my main takeaway after he won the belt and he had an incredible performance against Jack Della Maddalena, the sheer relief in his voice. He's like, "This is the best day of my life," and normally a very humble guy who's maybe tries to avoid celebrating at some points, kind of couldn't hold himself back, had to say, this was a big moment for me, the best day of his life, he said. And, I think that welterweight's pretty loaded, but he's going to be a really tough out. He looked huge in there. I would love to know what he weighed. I would venture to guess at least 190. And it makes you wonder
Actually,
how
I know
much.
Eric, they did. I'll
Yes.
point out to you, they did an anatomy of a fight video, and they did show that he was, I believe, 189 and change that night.
Wow,
Wow.
there we go. And Erich, I completely agree with you. I think he looks, at least from what we saw in the post-fight presser, he looks very motivated to, continue a legacy. And he'd said that all week that he wants to have a few more at least title defenses at welterweight. So I do think that we could see a more active Islam Makhachev than we've seen before. What do you think? I'll throw it back to Scott as far as the I'll let you go ahead. Do you have something you wanted to say?
I wanted to add in here. I mean, just the fact that, like, not only is he set up for potentially being a little more active. I mean, there are just so many names that
Yeah.
everyone's fresh. He's brand new to this weight class.
Mhm.
We saw that little bit of a facelift right to the division in the earlier part of the card, right? And we'll talk a little more about them, but, like, I mean, just the names that are available to him in the next coming, in the year or two, right? Michael Morales, Carlos Prates, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Machado Gary, even Bilal Muhammad, Kamaru Usman, you keep hearing about, Gabriel Bonfim, Sean Brady, you can't rule out even coming back. And then there's, of course, the specter of potentially Ilia Topuria down the line coming up from 55 to 70 as well. I mean, how many names is that? That's ridiculous. We're looking at something fascinating right now.
100%. And Scott, I'll throw it back to you going off of that, coming off of those names. We talked about sort of his activeness, but what do you think about his dominance looking like compared to his lightweight reign? What do you think about those names going up against him at welterweight? Can he continue that dominance at welterweight?
Look, he can, but it's going to be tougher. Like, I think Jack Della Maddalena, as much as people were excited for his potential there against Islam Makhachev, the size and all that kind of thing. We already knew coming in that hey, maybe takedown defense isn't like his strength. It wasn't necessarily we looked at it as a total deficiency, and I still don't know that is. I think that has more to do with Islam than anything, and a little bit of strategy. But I think what we have now is we have somebody who is no longer completely overmatching everybody in his weight class, which is I think what we saw from 155 pounds up at 170. So many of these guys, there's going to be a little bit more of an equalizer here, and there's some people who have some talent to potentially neutralize that because they're big and they have a little more takedown defense. So I think there's intrigue now in most Islam Makhachev title defenses that you did not have anymore at 155 pounds. Would you say so too, Eric?
100%, 100%. Even if you go by like what his matchups were when he had the bell, and then what was kind of like coming up for him, it was really just Ilya, and then the rest wasn't going to be super interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy seeing him that big. It seems like the weight went on pretty easy, and it's a pretty scary thing for the welterweight division to be looking at. I would say even though it wasn't like a crazy submission like he had against like Hanato or a head kick like he did against Volkanovski, it was just like wow, he just did that to the champion. So if I'm a 170er, I'm not super excited to get into the cage with Islam Makhachev. But let's talk about some of those other guys at 170 and the other two fights that we had. Let's talk about who we think could challenge first. Eric, I'll throw this to you. Who do you think he will fight first? And also, who would you like him to fight first? Who do you want, and who do you think we will actually see?
So we saw obviously the welterweights this weekend. We saw, Carlos Prates and Michael Morales, and I'll leave those guys to the side right now. One matchup that Islam Makhachev mentioned, I actually like it, and I think I might be alone on that. I like the Kamaru Usman call out. I think that that's a really fun one for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I think the most important reason is I want him to fight somebody that he doesn't have a clear grappling advantage over. Like Jack Della Maddalena was always going to be deficient in grappling. Now, some people were like, he's going to get up, he's going to get up. You know, I had written in my column for the newspaper, I don't expect him to get up. Like, I just don't see that happening. Now, I want him to fight somebody who is just as good at him at grappling. I think Kamaru Usman profiles as that at least a little bit as somebody who can compete with him on the mats and isn't clearly deficient in striking. Yes, I think Islam Makhachev, if I were to line it, I would say Makhachev is definitely going to be the favorite in that fight. Definitely going to have a striking advantage. But I think that they're close enough in each of those two areas where I think that that is actually a really fun matchup. Obviously, you have the legacy idea of it with Kamaru Usman running this division for so long. But for me, I would like to see a Kamaru Usman Islam Makhachev matchup, and I'm probably alone on that, and that's okay. We have Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's obviously injured. I don't know where he's going to be, but that's kind of where I'm at. Scott, what do you say?
You're not alone. I don't think it's the worst thing. I actually don't think so. I'm not saying, listen, that is not actually my preferred pick, and I don't even think it's necessarily going to be where they go. But if they did, I am very much on board. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of people who maybe don't like it because of the whole, dominance MMA kind of for lack of a better word, incest there because they're two people under the same umbrella. They're trying to kind of keep it that way, right? Do business in there. And from a management standpoint, I get that. And I can understand not even liking that. But Kamaru Usman, very dominant champion in his time. He is still not that far off of where he was. I think, we lost two fights to Leon Edwards, right? He went up on short notice and gave the current middleweight champion, Hamza Chimaev, a real run for his money, literally won 2 out of 3 rounds, but because of the way we do scoring, he actually lost a split decision, which is kind of crazy to think about. This guy needs to be taken seriously. I think we've slept on him too long. We've forgotten what he was. I'm not saying he'd win, but I'm very okay with the idea of it. But I'll give you my preferred pick, and I'll give you my who I think it's going to be. I would love to see it be Shavkat Rakhmonov. I know he's been on the shelf. It's really only been almost a year, right? So in theory, if he came back in January, he actually had a shorter layoff than Jack Della Maddalena did when he fought for the title. So it's not that crazy. That's number one. I think that's just too fascinating, and I think the skill set is really neat there. So I would love that fight.
I
I
just don't
do
hear
think
anything about
they
Shavkat.
will end up. No, you don't. He's a wild card, but we don't know anything about next year. Can I give you my who I think it'll be yet though?
Please.
I think it's going to be Michael Morales. I think that's where they're going to go. We'll talk more about him, but I'm going to say that's my pick, who I think the UFC will do.
Yes, we will. And I just a note. I earlier this week, I do believe Ariel Helwani, who obviously touted reporter, he said that he's hearing that Shavkat. I believe you heard this from his team. Don't quote me on that, but he's heard that he will be ready early next year. So certainly seems doable, and I think that is my preferred pick as well, Scott. Shavkat, who do I think it'll be? I think it's going to be Kamaru. I mean, I can't imagine if Ali and Dana, like Dana is like Kamaru's the greatest welterweight of all time, which I think that's an insane take. It seems like they're all
It
kind of
is.
on the same page. So I think it is going to be Kamaru.
Insane.
If not Shavkat and he's not ready for that, you've got to go with Michael Morales. He just beat essentially the number one guy besides Bilal Muhammad. Obviously, things can kind of change after what happens this weekend. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's talk about the fight itself between Islam and Jack Della. I will say it was a little bit harder for me being in the stands. I mean, we were all there present and looking up at the TV on occasion, but the facial expressions of Jack Della Maddalena that I've seen afterwards in between these rounds, he's just looking pretty defeated. And what we saw in the fight, Eric, I'll throw this to you. Did Islam break JDM in that fight? What do you think?
Certainly looks like it. You haven't heard from Jack since that since the loss. He just posted on Instagram right before we jumped on there, thanking all of his fans for the love and all the support. Honestly, you after rewatching, you see the coaches in between rounds 4 and 5 say, get that sad look off your face. You got to knock him out right now. Like you got to throw caution to the wind and get a finish here. And the facial expression in between round 4 and 5, they looked of like a defeated fighter. I don't know. We'll see how he comes out after this. I mean, and obviously as my two co-hosts here know, being on bottom against a serious grappler with heavy top pressure like Islam Makhachev does, it could definitely get you to that point where it hurts. Obviously, he knows at the level highest of anybody. So it definitely looked like it. I hope that he will be able to come back from this and get back up there. But we've seen things like this happen in MMA where one performance can kind of change your entire career, and we'll see what happens with Jack after this fight. It definitely the optics afterwards and didn't look great.
Scott, what do you think about this performance for JDM?
I got a couple thoughts, but I do want to follow up just on what you were saying as far as him looking defeated afterward. One thing that really surprised me is that as the defending champion who did lose, he did not stick around in the cage afterward to speak with Joe Rogan. He left immediately after the decision was read, walked right past the media, as one does, but he didn't stay in the cage. That was a little surprising. That was number one, because he didn't have any apparent clear injuries that would necessitate him leaving. Number two, he didn't stay and talk to anyone in the media room. He didn't have any of that time, which we've seen some fighters do when they lose. It has happened. That was a little telling, I think, for the fact that he was clearly extremely frustrated with him. I imagine himself more than anything. But we don't really know because he did not give us the opportunity to find out what his mindset is. We can only speculate. The only thing I would say, I still have a couple of things. I do want to say that he's only 29, number one. He is very capable of bouncing back from this. I don't know that he's ever going to fight Islam again. Let's be real here. But Islam's not going to fight forever. If he's only 29 and Islam's 34, I mean, we're talking about someone who could be around for a little while. He can climb that mountain again. But as far as if he was broken in the fight, I don't know. And that's the tricky part. He didn't talk to us. But when he was in there for 25 minutes, as frustrating as it was, and as clearly as he wasn't really showing great body language between rounds, you saw somebody who was battling every moment of that fight to avoid being finished. And that is something that I don't know that you're going to see from a defeated fighter so far into that fight. I think at some point, if you are absolutely broken, you're going to cave. And he never did. Even in fifth round, he's gritting. you could see it in his face. He's doing everything he can to defend this.
Yeah.
So I do think as much as the strategy was not there and he didn't really perform in that way, I think he was doing everything he can to give everything he had to survive. And that's not going to win, but I think it wasn't broken. I don't know. It's tricky though.
100%. Eric and I mean, obviously all three of us, have done jujitsu at one point or another. Eric probably being the most active jujitsu practitioner of us. We're talking about the front choke sinking in. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got it. And then Jack, gets it out, 2-on-1, what have you. And he like you said, he was really fighting that whole time. I'm just so curious if Islam didn't go up to welterweight and he stayed down at lightweight, what JDM would have looked like against, say, Sean Brady, who would have been, in my opinion, if Shavkat was, still injured like he would have been fighting for a title, or against a Shavkat or what have you. It just, Islam, he's pound for pound number one for a reason. I know pound for pound is not your favorite topic, Scott, but it just goes to show like how the guy
just use it as a conversation piece, fine. But
Yeah.
like, in terms of arguing over who should be 3 or 4 or 6 or 12, like
Yeah,
I just don't get into that. But the
Yeah.
idea of someone being the best pound for pound fighter, that one number, and you want to argue about 1 or 2 or 3 and just have a fun little debate, hey, that's cool. I mean, it's like a historical debate.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when I used to do the rankings, we're a little on a tangent here, but when I used to do the rankings in the UFC's as part of the UFC's panel years back, you'd have to rank them all the way down to I think 15. It was like, who cares about who's number 14 pound for pound?
Yeah,
Nobody cares.
It's too hard to think about.
Top 5 only. Should be top 5 only.
Top 5 is fine. Top 5 is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I just wanted to throw out there is that this whole conversation surrounding 170 pounds, what a sliding doors moment it is that Islam Makhachev moved up to 170. Because if Jack Della Maddalena had fought somebody else at 170, I bet you Sean Brady would have gotten the title shot given Shavkat Rakhmonov's injury. And I know now we're about to talk about Sean Brady and the Michael Morales fight, which what a sliding doors moment that both these fighters who end up losing at 170 pounds in this card could have easily fought for the title had Islam Makhachev not moved up. It's real interesting.
It absolutely is. And let's talk about some of the other fights at 170, like you just mentioned. Carlos Prates and Michael Morales coming away with wins, both by knockout of Sean Brady and Leon Edwards. Scott, I'll throw this to you. Who do you think looks most like championship material in those two fights? What do you think?
Of the two fighters, I don't want to just base it on that one performance, but I'm going to base it on the fighters as we've seen them, right? I'm going with the fact that I think Michael Morales here, he really does look like much more championship material than Carlos Prates does. I think, and by a big margin, frankly. He has incredible poise for his age at 26 years old. He has a lot of those prototypical skills we see in fighters who do become not just champions, but lasting champions. I mean, whenever he does get a fight with, say, Islam, right? I think that's going to be spellbinding because he's just got so much to offer here. Prates, by comparison, look, he's fun. He's a really fun fighter. I think he's a high-level fun fighter, but I don't know that he has what it takes. I think he's just a little flawed in his skill set there to get quite over the hump. I won't fully rule it out, but I'm much less expectant of him ever having that UFC championship divisional gold around his waist. Maybe a BMF title one day. That I can see, but that's not gold.
Yeah. Eric, I'll say the same question to you. Who do you think looks more like championship material, Morales or Prates?
One thing I could say, so Michael Morales is the clear answer to me as well. Michael Morales looked and felt like a superstar out the whole time. Scott, off the top of your head, do you know what Michael Morales weighed in the cage before I say he weighed over 190?
I have no idea about him. I only heard about Islam.
Okay. Regardless, Michael Morales, 6'1", making 170 is nuts. I don't know how he does it.
He looks huge.
He is mind-blowingly large for the division. So I think that, Michael Morales is going to have a size advantage against just about anybody that he faces at welterweight. And he looked, sounded, and felt like, also I liked like the dyed hair, the look, the clothes. He had English, but he also speaks Spanish. Like, he's got the championship aura to him. Like, he definitely should be marketed as a potential title winner. One thing that was just really like a little interesting detail behind the scenes, a lot of Ecuadorian media there for Michael Morales, and all three of us were sitting there in the media room interviewing fighters, asking questions. I believe Scott may have asked Michael Morales a question, and we were going through it. Did you not? Sorry, maybe I was thinking of somebody else, but regardless. Michael Morales is in there, and Ecuadorian. So like half of the press conference was English, and then the other half was Spanish. The
because
amount
there
of
were so
Ecuadorian
many. Yeah.
because there's so much of Ecuadorian media, and it was just unbelievable to me that they literally had to tell the Ecuadorian media is like no more questions. Like this interview has gone on for a very long time, and there's like no more questions. Ecuadorian media is like more and more and more. And like no more questions. Like we have to move on. Um, you know, he's got a country behind him, which the UFC loves. We've seen that in the past. Jose Aldo with Brazil, Conor McGregor with Ireland. They're trying to push with Ilia Topuria in Spain. They love it when the country is behind their fighters. I think that that's a big piece of this for Michael Morales as well. And he's already getting into the back and forth with Islam. He's already getting himself that title shot just by the way he's talking on social media. Like they're going back and forth. He's like, I got Muay Thai. You might have grappling, but I got Muay Thai. Like I love it for Michael Morales. I think he is so far done everything that he could possibly have needed to do to get this title shot, and I expect him to get it.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, he's correct me if I'm wrong. He's a pretty young guy too, right?
He's
26.
20.
26.
Yeah, yeah. So he's at the just going into the prime of his career, and then also on top of that, when you just look at the performance of him against Sean Brady, I mean, Sean Brady was we've said this a few times now. He very well could have been the guy fighting Jack Della Maddalena tonight if Islam was not there, and Morales disposed of him like it's in an
Wasn't
incredibly
competitive.
impressive fashion. So I agree. I think Morales, like you said, Scott. I think Prates, obviously, he's like a very lovable fighter in terms of his style, and he's got the personality to go along with it. But does he have the complete game to get to that title? Remains to be seen.
He has the potential to get there, I think. I actually could see him winning the right fights, and because he is so popular and they like the way he kind of does things, I can see him getting there. I think getting over the hump's gonna be harder.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the guys who are at the other end of the octagon from Morales and from Praches. Sean Brady, Leon Edwards, both suffering pretty devastating losses in different manners, of course. But Scott, I'll throw it back to you again. Where do you think these losses leave these two fighters?
Let's start with Brady. I think Brady obviously took a tumble, right, in the rankings, and I think deservedly so. It's not just because he lost that potential title shot, but it also showed just how much he needs to find another way to be dangerous when the takedown isn't coming or isn't readily present, right? If he's on his feet, we're now looking at this as like, okay, he doesn't look like he can really hang up here that long with someone who's a really dangerous striker, which now he's going to have to fight them. This is where they are. He's only 32. Like I said, I think he's got time. He can bounce back. He's very strong on the ground. If he can develop some of these skills, I think he gets back there. But like now at this point, he's got to fight down in the rankings, right? He's got to fight somebody like maybe a Joaquin Buckley or a Gabriel Bonfim, which I think I was kind of trying to book the two of them together against each other last week. But yeah, one of them, any triumvirate of those three, I think makes a little bit of sense as well there. I do want to say something about Edwards, but let's hear what Eric thinks about Brady first.
Yeah, it's a tough loss for Sean Brady. I don't think it's the end of the world necessarily. I think that we understand where his deficiencies are. He's not great fighting on his back foot. When he's striking, he wants to be on his front foot and threatening the takedown while landing jabs and crosses. So I think we understand like kind of where the deficiencies are. When he was on his back foot, you could see the power coming back from Morales. He really didn't come forward again. Once he got hit by one shot, he was like, whoa, what was that? You could see it in his face, and then he had to back off. So, where does he go from here? I think that, I wouldn't hate, like, if, and we're projecting some stuff out. I know we're going to talk about this fights this weekend, but, if Ian Gary were to lose this weekend to Bilal Muhammad, I'd be fine with that matchup as well. I think that would be a good matchup for both of them to kind of see where that ends up. I like the Joaquin Buckley or Gabriel Bonfim call outs as well. They're a little further down the rankings than I think that I would like for Brady to go, considering he was ranked number one coming into the week. Going all the way down to number 10 would be definitely a tough pill to swallow, I guess, if I was Sean Brady. But, regardless, tough loss for him. And, yeah, it's Michael Morales Might just be one of the best lightweight in the world, and we just don't know it yet. Who knows?
Yeah, it's weird because I mean, Eric, you and I have said before we're Sean Brady stands, and it's a little bit it's tough when you're in a situation like that where you could have been walking into a title shot and then it all kind of falls apart. Taking a fight
There was a lot there
yeah,
was a lot riding on Sean Brady to win too, because there was, as I think we all noticed, right? And I think I even mentioned it to, I want to say Chris or Kyle Dawkins, excuse me. The fact that there was a very distinct Pennsylvania feel to this card that was in New York. A lot of
Mhm.
Pennsylvania fighters, a lot of Philly area fighters, and you got the sense from a lot of people, and I'd heard, privately too, that if Sean Brady had won, there was like a really good chance that they would find a way to Philadelphia for a coming card. And
Mhm.
a big loss like this, I don't know what it can't help. I don't know that it
So,
kills it, but there was definitely something riding on it, and it didn't go the way that maybe it could have, right?
Jake
For that to
Noaker is
happen.
shaking his fist right now angrily. Shout out.
uh,
But
that
yeah, it's tough because like in half of me, I'm like, well, like God, if Sean just never took that fight, which like you could argue he didn't need to, then he would still look like a pretty good option for the title. But at the same time, we've got this new guy in Michael Morales who, I mean, he deserved that win. He made the number two guy look like he didn't belong there and there with him, you know? I mean, who knows what the night was like for Sean Brady? People come in with injuries or what have you. But Michael looked great. So we've got a new.
He needed to take that fight, though. I would actually argue he needed to take that fight, because imagine if he didn't fight and someone else fought Michael Morales. He's still getting passed over. I mean, we're talking about a couple other
It's
guys,
possible.
and that's not even Shavkat, who we all think ought to be the next one, right? So, or at least Jake and I. So, if you want to stay active in this environment where there's so many contenders, you do kind of have to fight. I think he knew that.
I
Yeah.
actually I actually agree with Jake on this one. I think that um I disagree with Sean Brady taking this fight. I think that he was right to call out Ian Gary, and I think Ian Gary should have taken the Sean Brady fight. If I was, the manager for either of these guys, that would be how I would have done it. I think it would have been beneficial for both of them to not take the fights that they currently have
I
or had
agree. I
taken.
agree.
Disagree from Ian Gary's perspective. I think Ian Machado Gary, he gains a lot more from fighting the recently dethroned welterweight champion than he does from fighting Sean Brady. And that's not disrespectful to Brady. It's more respectful to what Belal Muhammad was able to accomplish.
I would just add that Brady, I believe, was ranked higher than Bilal coming into the league.
I'm torn. I see both of your guys. I don't. For me, it's kind of tied. Like beating Sean Brady, who's like almost pretty much the number one guy, versus beating the recently dethroned champion. Like both seem like you'd get a title shot coming off of that. But listen, welterweight is looking pretty good right now. I would say that much, and
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how everything shook out this week and what we're going to see next
We
weekend.
never talked about Leon.
Oh yeah, what happened, Scott? Yes, what was your thoughts on Leon?
Well, I'm glad I put that off, because we had a lot to say about Sean Brady, didn't we?
Yes.
As far as Leon Edwards goes, I'm sorry to say this, but he is done as a threat to true welterweight contenders. And he's still a good fighter, mind you. He did actually win the first round against Carlos Prates. So it's not like he got blasted, right? He got blasted in the moment, into a total other dimension that you and I have never been to before. But yeah, I think we can't look at him as anything more than maybe like a measuring stick now for, potential fighters who could really say, hey, we belong. We really do belong. And that's what we got with Carlos Prates, right? But the thing is, now Leon Edwards, he's on three straight losses. He might need to win like as soon as possible just to avoid the UFC moving on from him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would. I don't know if they would cut him. I mean, they're
I
not
don't know.
in the,
Well, contracts can run out too, and
that
maybe they're just like,
they
he's
don't
not worth
renew.
the price, because he's not the most marketable guy, never really truly was, and nothing against him. I had nice conversations with him for the purposes of our outlet and that kind of thing, but they certainly feel, you can tell that they can get a lot more out of other guys than they can out of Leon Edwards.
Yeah, if you're a Leon Edwards fan, I mean, this one hurts. Like this one hurts a
Yeah.
lot, I would say. What do you say, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, the grappling was an interesting choice. We know why now. After round one, I was kind of surprised to see him go into the grappling. I thought that he was, he'd never been knocked out before. I mean, think about this. 14 months ago, this guy was the champion. He's now lost three in a row, two very, very decisively. Um, it's not great for him, obviously. I mean, you know, I was just surprised that that was the shot that knocked him
I
out. I
agree.
know that, like it was like a jab cross, very, very basic, just through his guard. It chinned him, but I don't know.
There
It
was a
wasn't like
follow
he
up
was
shot,
yeah,
but
there was a follow-up shot when he was on the ground. I was just surprised that that even sat him to begin with.
yeah, on his
So I think the
back.
questions have to be asked about his chin going forward. I don't know how much damage he's taken in his career. There's been a lot of grappling fights in his career. I don't know. He was never the highest volume striker either. So I don't know. It wasn't like an accumulation of strikes. I mean, it's only 21 significant strikes landed by Prates. The whole first round was grappling that he won that round. So I was just surprised that he got knocked out by that. Honestly, I don't know where his chin's at this point, but I think that's also a big part of this conversation.
I don't know if I question his chin necessarily. I think sometimes you just get caught, and that's not to say he got hit by a lucky shot or anything like that, but sometimes these just happen. I think unless we see a pattern, I don't really worry too much about that kind of thing, and I don't think we're at a pattern yet.
No,
Yeah,
definitely not a pattern. It's the first time he's been knocked out, but I'm definitely concerned about it. I'll just say it.
yeah.
Fair.
Regardless, it's tough, being in that position as Leon. Like you said, Scott, it's back to the title doesn't look like it's a very easy thing to do for him
14
right
months
now.
ago, he was the champ. Now he's on his way out of the top 10 rankings.
Yeah. Oh well,
Brutal.
let's talk about the other title that was on the line at flyweight. Valentina Shevchenko very successfully defending her title against Zhang Wei Li, a dominant performance over 5 rounds. And I mean, we were talking about, was this the last thing to do for Valentina Shevchenko before this fight? Let's talk about it now that it's happened. How much further do you think that she can go with this flyweight title, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much. Well, I'll just say this: what she said in the post-fight press conference, I was very impressed with. I was interested. I actually agree with this decision by her to say, you know what, I'm not really that interested in moving up to bantamweight, and maybe in a future homework assignment, can watch her fight Amanda Nunes to a split decision. Amanda Nunes was way bigger than her in there, so yeah, I like the decision from her. I just think that I mean, the fight was what it was. She did what she had to do to win, and that's what she does every time out there. She gets wins. That's all she does. All she cares about is getting the win and exiting stage left. And that is, for better or worse, whether you think it's entertaining or not, she doesn't care. And you know what? She's probably the best flyweight women's fighter of all time, and that's not even really a hot take. She's the best flyweight of all time, and moving up to bantamweight, it's
Oldest
like, why?
oldest take you could come up with, my friend. That was so
I
clear.
know,
I was
right?
like,
There's not
yeah.
the flyweight and women hasn't it's not exactly a loaded history, but Valentina Shevchenko is amazing, and you might not like it. It might not be the most entertaining, but I like the move. I think her and Aaron Blanchfield would be a fun fight. Let's do it.
Scott, what do you think? Well, before we get to who fighting next, how much further do you think she could go?
It's really as far as she wants. Like, look, she's not the terror that she was earlier in her reign. It's not been that way for a little while. Like you said, I think very well, Eric. She is in there to win and move on. It doesn't really matter to her how she does it. Win is win. And she's very kind of clear in the way she thinks, and you can kind of see that whenever she engages with media and that kind of thing. That is very much all business, and the win is all we need, right? Um, and yeah, she does not seem very interested in going up. And I guess I can't blame her either. We want that for her. I think we're interested in that kind of thing, but she feels this is her weight class. Whenever I've asked her about that before too, she's kind of I don't know if it was a joke or not, but she's kind of pushed back. I'm like, why are you asking me about Amanda? This is where I am. I'm a flyweight, and I respect that. Um, she can really kind of go as far as she wants to. Frankly, she doesn't look like she's ever going to stop fighting. She
And she's
kind of
been doing
seems
it
like
for
she could
so
fight
long.
forever.
Yeah.
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 And at this point too, we're talking about somebody who is 11 championship victories into her career. She's been in, I think I said last week, every title fight of this weight class from the second one on. So
Yep.
it's really just the Shevchenko belt. If she wins five more championship fights, which granted that's a lot. We're talking about probably 2, 3 years from now, around there. That's a lot of time. if she can get there, she ties John Jones for the record for wins in UFC title fights. She's only one away from passing Amanda Nunes on the women's side. I don't blame her if she wants to just keep chasing history and the divisional dominance. That would be fine with me.
Yeah, keep stacking up wins. I'm fine with it.
hundred
I would
percent.
do the same thing as honestly. I would do no different.
Yeah, I mean, who there are like things obviously that we remember about like champs going up and getting like two divisions, like Connor for instance, but like we don't think about him as the greatest of all time, even if you cut out like the stuff that happened after he fought Mayweather, right? It's the people that we look at and are like, who are the best of all time? It's the guys that defended their titles for and gals that that defended for quite a long time. John Jones, Demetrius Johnson, George St. Pierre. That's what matters, I would say, the most in terms of legacy. So I totally
Yeah.
respect what she's doing there. But Scott, let me ask you, who do you think you would like to see her fight next?
So, who should she fight next? I don't know. I mean, it's tricky because it's not going to be Manon Fiorot, even though she is very much like that number one contender, right? She did just really blasted Jasmine Dazavicius, but I don't think you can give it to her that quick because the first fight it was competitive but not super close either. Um, it's really between Natalia Silva and Erin Blanchfield, who you mentioned before, Eric. My gut says it's going to be Blanchfield. She's coming off of a finish right here in New York, finally avenging that loss she had to Tracy Cortez when she was a teenager. Silva's last finish was 2.5 years ago, 5 fights. So I think it's probably going to line up a little better for them to go with Erin Blanchfield here. It doesn't hurt that she's American either.
Yeah,
Fair.
100%. What do you think, Eric?
I was actually pretty Jake, we were watching that fight
Yeah,
together. And I was like, man, Tracy Cortez looks pretty good. And
yeah,
then Aaron Blanch gets a rear naked choke without either hook. That's one of the first times I've seen that in MMA,
hmm
honestly. Um, Regardless, awesome performance by Aaron Blanchfield. You know, beat Rose Namajunas last time out. I have a hard time finding a better contender. I like her better than Natalia Silva, and as we already saw the Fior fight. So yeah, give me Aaron Blanchfield. I think those grappling exchanges would be super entertaining. I think Aaron Blanchfield's a really skilled grappler with really good submissions, and we've seen obviously last time out and recently we've seen Valentina Shevchenko kind of fall back on the grappling. So I think it'd be good to have somebody that could maybe challenge her on the mats and really force her to strike and pile up significant strikes again. Because I mean, as we saw, I mean, me and Jake were joking about this, but Scott, do you know how many significant strikes Valentina had in her last fight? This last fight against Zhang Weili?
No, I did not know.
41. 41 significant strikes
Yeah.
over a 5-round fight. That is
I,
the
I
lowest
believe it.
total.
It was a lot of grappling. Yeah.
Yeah.
but I
I'm just saying the lowest of her entire career in a 5-round fight that went to I think that went past the third or fourth round. But any decision basically, yeah.
I like your point there in terms of Aaron challenging Valentina on the grappling. I think in before you said that, in my mind I was like, God, it's pretty neck and neck for me between Silva and Blanchfield. I mean, Silva, good performance in her last fight. She's also, a very, I feel like she's got the character to be a star if that's something that the UFC wanted to go with. But I think that Aaron on the ground being able to sell that for a fight in terms of entertainment value, like this is someone who's not just going to, get dominated on the ground by Valentina. I mean, she
Yeah. I
could.
mean,
Valentina's pro, but
We saw Alexa Grasso submit Valentina. So who knows? I think that's why I like Aaron Blanchfield, like
yeah.
as a matchup.
Well, let's talk about the woman at the other end of the octagon that night, Zhang Wei Li, and I'll throw this to you, Eric. What do you think? What do you think? Where do you think she's at in terms of the GOAT conversation? What does this loss do for her in the all time great conversation?
Could eliminate her altogether, to be honest, regardless of how her career continues from here. It's just her third loss. Usually, 3 losses isn't exactly a prerequisite for being part of GOAT conversations. I mean, Islam Makhachev has 1 loss, and it was at the very, very beginning of his career. Hasn't lost since. Dana White, said in the post-fight press conference, he's now a part of the GOAT discussion. Obviously, women's and males divisions aren't exactly the same, but third loss. Obviously, this is moving up in weight, so I wouldn't like to see her back at flyweight anytime soon. I'd like to keep her back at strawweight going forward. She was, taken down a bunch here, and it was a rinse and repeat situation. It was double underhook and then outside trip and then top half guard from Valentina. It was rinse and repeat. I would have liked to see a stand up, at least one of those by the referee. I believe it was Mark Goddard at the time. Would have liked to see a stand up, but I mean, whatever. I understand, the thought process of you have to get out of the position. Valentina's way bigger than her. So for Zhang, I'd like to see her go back to strawweight, take that belt back off of Mackenzie Dern. Sorry, Mackenzie. That fight's coming for you no matter what. And we'll see what happens in that one, but she's gonna be an uphill battle for Mackenzie Dern. So I'm interested to see what happens back at strawweight. I'm more interested in her at strawweight at this point than I am at flyweight. That's for sure.
What do you think, Scott?
Well, I'll tell you what, my women's GOAT is Amanda Nunes, and she's got 5 losses, so I really don't care about that. I'm fine with the number of losses there. But as far as to your point, I think yes, we can probably eliminate Zhang Weili from potential GOAT status or something like that, right? I think she's very much got in her wheelhouse to be the greatest strawweight of all time. I still actually would put her at the top of that, but it's very much still debatable unless she goes back down and does more work down there, right? Um, so yeah, I think obviously it's disappointing for her. It's a legacy fight that she lost. This was a super fight, and it did not go her way. That's going to be remembered. But one thing that I think is a little bit of a moral victory for her is I think she really did just want to test herself. She wanted to see how she measured up. And I think nothing ventured, nothing gained. That was a bold thing to do, and I think she had the healthy attitude for it too. When she walked by the media on her way out of the cage, I snapped a picture of her she was aware of, and she very much was like giving like a good face and everything like that. You could tell this is a woman who, while she lost, she wasn't defeated. You know what I mean? I think
100%.
that was impressive. I think that was very impressive from her. So, but conversely, as far as Valentina Shevchenko, I mean, this certainly boosts her at least a little bit. I think it's still going to be tough for her to kind of crack into what I would put as like my top 2 that I would debate over the GOAT status here: Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg, who, yes, Nunes beat her, but Cyborg has an impressive resume. So
Sure
it's tricky,
does.
but I think we have 3 women who very much belong on the Mount Rushmore without any thought otherwise.
Yeah,
And then you probably put Ronda Rousey in there. I think that's what it is.
I think that's fair enough.
I think we could have a bigger conversation about GOAT conversations, especially with the fluctuating of divisions and stuff. Yeah, Amanda Nunes has 5 losses, but only 3 in the UFC or Strikeforce, etc. So that's a conversation for another time, but definitely worth having.
100%.
One thing to throw out there for Valentina too. This was a point I wanted to bring up, is this just the fact that if you want to start throwing her out there as the GOAT, Valentina, I think she is very much the greatest women's fighter of 125 or below of all time. I think she has
That,
put a complete stamp on that. I don't even think it's going to be challenged for a very long time. And frankly, the weight classes down there, particularly 115 and 25, they are much deeper than 135 and especially 45. So the fact that she's been so dominant at a very deep weight class too, that is something that absolutely gives her a boost.
For
I,
so long.
And I think something worth mentioning is like, yes, Valentina also has 3 losses, as does Zhang Weili, but only one of them was, and it was to Alexa Grass, so only one of them at the division. So before everyone jumps down my throat about that.
And a draw in there.
Yeah, there's a draw in there. That is true.
Yes. Alrighty, well, I think it is time for us to tie a bow on UFC 322. What happened at flyweight, what happened at welterweight was quite a bit, and there's even more happening at welterweight coming this weekend. But first, let's talk about the lightweights that are going to be fighting at UFC Qatar this weekend. Scott, you spoke to 2 of them, Dan Hooker and Arman Sarukian, and it's no secret these guys do not like each other. Let's hear a little bit of what they had to say to one another in your interviews.
He didn't want to fight me. I called out him and he didn't respond or something, and then we started like talking about each other.
But you just don't seem to respect him as a person, or even for his motivations for fighting. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is. There's some people that just rub you the wrong way, but we're only days out from me getting my hands on them, and I just cannot wait.
Okay, so you heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right? Let's talk about some of the bad blood between these two guys. Eric, I know you're box office, right? This is the kind of stuff that you love. How box office is this fight? The two guys talking all that smack. What do you think?
It's decently box office, and I've always said this, and this isn't new. I've always liked when there's trash talk. I like it. There's a time and place always for sportsmanship, and hopefully they can dap each other up at the end of the fight. But leading up to it, I kind of want there to be a little bit of bad blood. Like Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren, like when he ran at him with that knee, it was perfect based on the buildup of the fight. So, for this one, Dan Hooker, he revealed that he asked for this fight. It's like, oh, I didn't get asked to do this fight. I asked to get this fight. I want Arman Tsarukyan because I don't respect him as a person. Like I don't like him. And he even said it was like I was going back and forth with Arman saying, I got those long limbs. Like you're never gonna be able to reach me. Like I'm way longer than you. I got way longer reach. So I love that stuff. I think that this is perfect matchmaking for both of them. I'm interested to see how the fight goes. I don't know if I'm even gonna have a bet on it, to be honest. It's definitely not gonna be in 3 bets in 3 minutes. So it's an interesting fight. I'm excited for it, but Dan Hooker's a 75-inch reach for the division. It's pretty big. He's 6 foot versus Arman is 5'7". That's a big discrepancy. So it's a fun one, man. I'm excited for this weekend's card.
Absolutely. And also, I failed to mention, this one also has some pretty big stakes in this fight, too. It's not just a fun fight, right? Like, Arman Tsarukyan was a #1 contender slated to fight for the title back in January. Some things have happened since then that have prevented that from happening. But, Scott, let's talk about some of the stakes in this fight. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man. I mean, it is a fantastic fight, right? Like, this is definitely box office, as Eric calls it. Hooker brings the action, win or lose, right? So I think we already know we're in for something fun to watch. The stakes, as we already talked about, they're very big here. But really for both of them, because Tsarukyan, it's not just because he's the #1 contender and he's kind of holding serve. He understands that he actually needs to be impressive here because of some of those perceived transgressions from Dana White and all that, because he had the trouble with the weight cut because of his back injury, his sciatica that he's spoken about. He needs to show that he can be fun and that he needs to be the next contender at the weight class. We've got other people who are lining up for that fight. So I really don't see this fight being disappointing, especially
have you guys seen
all the things going on.
Sorry.
No.
Have you seen the odds for it, either of you?
No.
Tsarukyan is -650. Hooker is +420. Big odds for Hooker. If you like Hooker, go for it.
Some value there, perhaps.
Oh, if you like him,
the fighter, not the profession, guys.
No, but I mean, it's this is a good fight, and honestly, respect to Hooker, and he's the one that kind of. He said it himself. He was like, listen, you got a guy ahead of me. He's got something that I want, right? No one else wanted to fight Arman Tsarukyan, so he claims, and so it kind of seems, right? Hooker was really kind of the only man willing to do it, it looks like.
I thought it was hilarious that he was like, no, I didn't want to fight him before. He was behind me, but now he's got something I want, so I definitely want to fight him.
Yeah,
Scott was so honest. I'm like, this is exactly true.
Scott's typically pretty all right, gonna just conduct the interview. He kind of poker face, right? And this one he was like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
It was funny.
Yeah. It was funny.
But it made a lot of sense. Seriously, it makes sense if you're looking out for yourself and you're a fighter. You are looking out for yourself in everything you do. Yes, why would you risk something? But here you have something. I want to go take that now. Yeah. I get it. And you know what? He didn't hide from it. Yeah. That's cool.
He was like, oh look, I'm not ducking him anymore.
Yeah. 100%. I like that they're both just embracing the stakes. They know that, and like he said, you have something that I want, I'm going to take it from you. And Arman's like, Arman admitted, this is a risky fight for me.
Yeah. But let's talk about the co-main event on this card, Bilal Muhammad and Ian Machado Gary. Scott, I'll throw this to you. Obviously, we had some pretty great performances by the two welterweights that we were talking about beforehand. How can either of these guys sort of put themselves on top as this shakeup happens at 170 for that title picture? What do you think?
I mean, assuming one of them wins, right? Well, one of them is going to win unless it's a draw. Let's go with Bilal here. He's in a weird spot, right? Because it's a training partner of his. Islam Makhachev has the title. I don't think it's ideal for him to want to take that fight. Would he take it? I don't know, maybe. But unless he even gets a fight of the year type of caliber victory or has some sort of massive highlight reel thing, I don't think he's going to get that fight no matter what he does, right? He's kind of holding serve and holding off his spot. Ian Gary, though, he's got a lot more to gain here, I think, especially because if he wins with some sizzle, he certainly can ride that momentum of this plus the win over Prates earlier this year, and the fact that Prates already elevated himself, that helps him out. To leapfrog Morales, though, it's going to be really hard. He's going to need like that highlight reel knockout, though. And is that going to happen? I don't know, but that's the kind of thing that he's going to need. Otherwise, he just gets into that mix.
Eric, what do you think?
You guys want to play guess the odds for this fight? What do you think the
No,
odds are?
just tell me.
Yeah. All right. Ian Gary minus 300, Bilal Muhammad plus 240. So massive underdog odds on Muhammad, the former champ.
That's surprising.
I was shocked when I saw that, so I had to share. But yeah, like where does this fight mean for that? I don't. Again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, touched on it. I'm not either of these guys as managers. I just would have liked to see Ian Gary fight Sean Brady, and Sean Brady was calling for the Ian Gary fight. I think that both of them should have taken those fights. Again, I'm no one's manager, but that would have been how I played it. Now, I guess when I see the odds, I guess maybe it was a little bit better that Ian Gary took it because, minus 300 is pretty big favorite status. With a really, really impressive win, we're talking mandatory finishes, given how stacked welterweight is. And when I say mandatory finish, I mean like the fight to go the distance is minus 275, which is like 75% chance. Like we need that like way down. Like if you're looking for first round knockout, second round knockout, and just like an unbelievable performance by Ian Machado Gary. So I agree with what you said. Bilal Muhammad probably not getting the title shot either way. Moving up to 185 is not ideal for him. That's not a good weight class for him. So yeah, I think that Bilal Muhammad, if he were to get a win, he's probably looking at just get the win bonus, and ride out some grappling, something like that.
Yeah, even if Islam was not the champion, I would have a hard time seeing Bilal getting a title shot again.
There's less stakes for Bilal to get a finish. Like I guess if I were to look at it from his perspective going into it, I wouldn't care as much about a finish if I was him. I'd care more about just getting a win.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the other fights on this card. Scott, what is your fight to watch for UFC Qatar?
Tahir Ulanbekov versus someone I've been waiting to return to the UFC for years. Never should have been able to, the UFC should have done everything to keep him. Kyoji Horiguchi. He is finally back, and I really want to see what he still has to offer the flyweight division from a competitive standpoint. Him and Alexandre Pantoja, they're training partners. They're thick as thieves. So I don't know what it's going to be like if he gets up to that point, but I want to see if he can start getting the climb at least towards that direction. So I'm very excited for that fight.
All right. I mean, me too. That's going to be great. I know you've been waiting for the longest time to watch him come back. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I've always been a big Alex Pereira's fan. He's he's Mr. Pullout according to everybody. He's pulled out of like 10 fights over the past like 5 years or something ridiculous. He's fighting Asu Almabayev. Almabayev solid as well. Lost him in El Cap, but hasn't lost in the UFC prior. Alex Perez has fought. He's lost 4 out of 5. But at one point, man, everyone was like, he fought for the title against Davison Figueiredo. Like at one point, the stakes were high for him, and injuries have kind of gotten in the way. I want to see how he looks because at one point he was considered a legitimate contender at the division. So yeah, that's my fight to watch. There's obviously the top of the card's unbelievable, but for 125, I think that this is a good matchup.
All right, and then for me, I have Jack Hermanson versus Mityabek Oralbai, and that is my best Goldie impression, which Scott is. I have to give credit to Scott, who is the one who made that first joke, because that would be just great. That'd be a great name for him to pronounce.
Mityabek Oralbai.
Yeah, there we go. And okay, just before we move on, I have to say this one's interesting to me because Jack Hermanson is a former middleweight. He's moving down to welterweight, and Mityabek Oralbai is moving up from lightweight to welterweight. So it's just I'm very intrigued to see how this one goes. But Scott, what do we have for our event rating?
So for the record, I want to also throw out there, I don't know if I'm even saying Mictabek correctly, but it's more fun to say it the way I say it as Goldie than anything. So we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
The event rating for this one, guys, is 82.
Wow.
We're talking about the best fight night rating in 3.5 years since they were on Long Island. You remember that card? That was a really good one. This is pay-per-view level, guys. This is like legitimately pay-per-view level. You would have seen this be a non-title pay-per-view numbered event like in the Spike TV days, and nobody would have cared. They would have ate this stuff up. Deep card, tremendous depth, elite main and co-main for a non-numbered event. 20 out of 28 fighters are top 100 with Fight Matrix. 19 of them are top 75, 15 in the top 50, 8 in the top 15. It is a must watch for a fight night card. Do not skip this.
And it's during the daytime too.
Yeah,
when is it, Jake?
It is 1
10
p.m.
start.
Yeah, go ahead,
10
Eric.
10 a.m. start in the prelims, 1 o'clock on the main card.
There we
Eastern
go.
time.
Make sure we don't forget that, because I mean, it's
ESPN
not,
Plus.
Yes, it's not always super straightforward. Alrighty, Eric, you mentioned 3 bets in 3 minutes. You ready to roll?
3 bets in 3 minutes makes a return. Last week, 0-2-1. We lost Jack Hayden. That fight did not end up happening. Obviously, I was right to fade Malcolm Wellmaker, who lost to Ethan Ewing, and then we were wrong on Zhang Weili. Bad bet. Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena. I think that was a good bet still, plus 125. But we move on. UFC Qatar. 3 bets in 3 minutes. We put 3 minutes on the clock, and here we go. We're going to start right on the main card, and we're going to go to Jack Hermansson versus Muratek Olobai. Olobai moving up in weight, never been submitted, but I got Jack Hermansson here. I got Jack Hermansson by submission. There's 18-1 floating out there. There was a plus 750 floating out there. So a lot of mixed opinions on how this fight's going to go. I like Hermansson here. He's got a bunch of submissions in his career, 8 submissions in his MMA career. Olobai never been submitted. Right, so there is that, but he is moving up in weight. I would suspect at least a little bit that Hermansson has, a little bit of a grappling advantage, a little bit of size advantage to potentially get him down to the mat. We're probably looking for a heel hook or a front headlock or something like that, but 18-1 just seems crazy on Hermansson. We're talking about Jack Hermansson here, who's submitted, some of the UFC's best guys. He submitted Gerald Mearshart, David Branch, obviously a long time ago, but I'll take Hermansson here by submission. It's 15-1 right now. 18-1 is what I had yesterday, but down to 15-1 and dropping. FanDuel has a 10-1, so hit that one. Next fight, Alonzo Menifield versus Volkan Ozdemir. A lot of decisions between these two fighters recently. Now, the odds makers here don't agree that this is going to go to, don't agree that this will go to a decision, but I do. I'll tell you why. Volkan Ozdemir and Alonzo Menifield are both been grappling a lot recently. Ozdemir is obviously a very good grappler, but Ozdemir got taken down 7 times by Nikita Krylov. I think Menifield, if he wants to go path of least resistance, it's heavy top pressure. It's avoid the submission game. Ozdemir obviously, submitted Guskov, 2023. So Menifield, good spot here. I think that, if he gets into the wrestling, I think he just lays on top of him a little bit and grinds out a decision win. Ozdemir went to decision last time against Carl Solberg, so we know that he can kind of take the power, right? And, Menifield, obviously, decision against Umar Sy, split decision against Julius Walker, and before that, Dustin Jacoby. Obviously, if he loses by knockout, and usually early. But if it, gets prolonged, I suspect after the first round, if it gets past the first round, I think we're going to a decision. So that's best bet number 2. We move on. Best bet number 3, and we go to the co-main event, Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Gary. I have this fight not to go to decision. I don't know why this line is so long. I understand it's a 3-round fight between Bilal and Ian Gary, and both of these guys are very used to 5-round fights, right? So there is an angle there where it's like if you're used to a 5-round fight, maybe you pace yourself a little bit too much, arguably. But we just talked about it. There needs to be a finish here, particularly from Ian Gary's side, in order to warrant a title fight. Ian Gary gave Shavkat Rakhmonov everything he could handle in the grappling, so I don't think that Bilal Muhammad necessarily will have an easy matchup here in just being able to get volume takedowns. I think Ian Gary is the most likely result here is that Ian Gary wins by knockout. But I don't love the plus 425 odds. I'll take plus 200 on fight does not go the distance, and then it can cover any finish in this fight. Those are 3 bets in 3 minutes. Enjoy the card. It's one of the best of the year, and make sure you wake up early.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Eric. And Scott, I'm going to throw it to you for quick hits.
Full boat of quick hits here for you guys, so we'll get right into it. There was a late change to the UFC Qatar main card with Waldo Cortez Acosta now stepping in to face Shamil Gaziev in a heavyweight fight. It was going to be Sergey Spivak. He had to pull out just 3 days' notice, but this is also 3 weeks after Waldo Cortez Acosta won by KO against Dante D'Elia. He had taken that eye poke that we talked about, so this is a very interesting spot for him. Maybe we'll talk about next week, depending on how that goes. The first reported fight for the UFC Paramount era is in, and we have Modestas Bukauskas. He's going against Nikita Krylov. That's being reported by MMA Fighting. It's to take place January 24th at an event and location yet to be announced. Some unfortunate news for next month's card, UFC 323. They lost a fight on their main. I don't know if it was on the main card or not, but Yasmin Lucindo was she tested positive for the steroid mestorolone and is out of her fight against Jillian Robertson. I was supposed to be on December 6th, of course, on that card. Her team is blaming a tainted supplement. I learned about this like an hour after I mentioned this fight to Fatima Klein in that interview we were talking about earlier. So when you get to that and you hear that question, just know we didn't really know, but that's it. We don't know any more strawweight fights coming up. Is a blank slate. Also, some updates here on a previous title challenger from this year, Kai Kara-France, who challenged for the flyweight title in the UFC in June. He's taking a year away from competition, not intending to retire. This all according to Ariel Helwani. The referees and judges for that 323 card that we mentioned before, 2 championship fights. We now have those officials announced or assigned, excuse me, by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Mark Goddard, he's going to referee Merab Dvalishvili's bantamweight title defense against Peter Yan, with the judges being Mike Bell, Derek Cleary, and Eric Colon. And then Herb Dean, he's going to be the third man in the cage with Alexandre Pantoja defending his title against Joshua Van. That is a fight that will be judged by Sal D'Amato, Chris Lee, and Ron McCarthy. There was an interesting revelation from Dana White this week, an allegation, what we should call it, when he made an appearance on the Flagrant podcast, that Francis Ngannou, of course, left the promotion as its heavyweight champion in early 2023. He had gotten physical with both Dana White and Hunter Campbell at their headquarters years back. Ngannou has yet to make any public comment on these allegations, so we'll take them as one side of a story for now. MMA focused feature film on the horizon. This is the last thing I wanted to mention to you guys. It's called Kill a Bee. And this being reported by Deadline, with Star Wars sequel trilogy star Daisy Ridley set to play a nurse-turned-fighter, Brioni Tyrell, who real-life Bellator and Cage Warriors veteran, had once fought Molly McCann. That is set to go into production starting the second quarter of 2026. And that's it. That's a lot, but that's it.
Alrighty, Scott, thank you for that. Let's move on to the final round, where we are going to finally review a Chris Cyborg fight, like Scott has been itching to give me some education on Chris Cyborg versus Jan Finney or Jan Finney?
Jan Finney.
Jan Finney.
Jan is a male name.
I know. That was a silly question. For those of you who don't know at home, now you do know that I was doing it for educational purposes. And listen, I mean, there were so many times in this fight where if I was the referee, I could have gone in and stopped it. Like, that was absolutely brutal. But oh my God, it's like that scene from Austin Powers where he's like, "Why won't you die?" Like, you know what I mean? It was crazy. I cannot believe it went that long. But to her credit, though, like when they did get stood up a few times, Jan was like, "All right, sounds good. Let's go." Like, "Are you sure?" And then there was the foul, and the ref is like, "Can you continue?" And she's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Really?"
I like you referencing Austin Powers. I'll reference another meme here. I didn't hear no bell. That's what it felt like. It felt like Randy Marsh is still going back at it. And it's like, I'm not done yet. I look terrible, but I'm not done.
It was great.
I don't know who that referee was. I know it was a female. I don't recall seeing much of her.
Yeah,
okay.
She was like, "You gotta fight back, Jan."
What does her career look like since then?
What does her career look like? The greatest reputation. She doesn't really do it anymore. There were a number of things that didn't go the way you would ideally want an officiated fight to go. And at some point we just didn't see her anymore.
I'll just say that was one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen.
It was tough.
It was terrible. It
Uh,
was
I will say, I actually, you know what? You know, one thing she did that I'm actually kind of okay with is the fact that she took the point for the strikes to
Yes.
the
She
back of
did.
the head.
Yeah, yes,
Because
she did.
those were
Yeah.
blatant, they were reckless,
Yes.
and they needed to be done, and it was a point taken. Realistically, I don't think anyone outside of, let's say, the officiating community has ever seen the scorecards of this first round here, but I'm willing to bet that this was actually scored a 9-7 round, with Cyborg getting the 9, which would have been a 10-7. Used to talk to officials about like 10-7s and that kind of thing, and they would point to this fight, this round, and say that's a 10-7.
All right, all
Okay.
right. Well, we are
That's good to
running
know.
low on time, so we do have to run through these next bits of things to get to. Scott, what is our next homework assignment?
You're going to watch Vitor Belfort against Michael Bisping from 2013. This was a very memorable fight in the career of Michael Bisping, and it was the headliner of a fight night in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
I won't spoil anything, but yes. Okay. And what happened this week in MMA for us, Scott?
11 years ago, November 22nd, 2014, Paige Van Zandt made her UFC debut against Kylene Curran. It was a fight of the night performance, deep on the prelims. They were fighting in Austin, Texas. That card was headlined by Frankie Edgar against Cub Swanson. That was the first time they met. It was actually one of the very first UFC strawweight fights, predating the championship being awarded later in the next month.
All right, all right. And to finish off this show, Scott, if you want one more fight back home outside of the major MMA promotions, what can people watch?
So there were fights that are not airing stateside that I wanted to highlight, but I'll just give you one that I think you can at least more easily access if you have certain subscriptions, right? Samurai MMA 17 is on Friday nights, starts 7 p.m. on Fight Pass. So if you're a Fight Pass subscriber, you've got that. Samurai is a Quebec-based promotion. PFL veteran Michael Dufour, he is headlining in defending his lightweight title against Alexandre Ribeiro. And then also on that card, I think this is what I'm a little more interested in, is a 9-0 flyweight prospect out of TriStar Gym. That is Tommy Morrison. He's competing at 130 pounds against Alfredo Muiad. Could be UFC bound before long, maybe even with a win here. I don't know.
All right,
Ross
all right.
Sahabi. Heard of him. All right, cool.
Yes, alrighty. Thank you so much for that, Scott, and thank you, Eric. Guys, it's always a pleasure. Thank you at home for watching. Let us know what you thought about your homework assignments and all of our other takes on this episode of Against the Cage. But till next time, I'm Jake Aryeh, Scott Fontana, Erich Richter.
Boys and girls.
See you next time.